Today's episode is about oversimplification and what gets lost when people turn complicated realities into neat little slogans. First, in That Would Never Work in Therapy, we head to friends and the eternal question of Ross and Rachel. Were they on a break? It is a pop culture argument, but underneath it, it's a real relationship issue about assumptions, definitions, and the danger of treating technical correctness like emotional innocence. Sometimes the fight is not about the rule, it's about the meaning or the emotion. Then in AITA, a family asks their neighbors to delay home renovations or work around a baby's sleep schedule. On one level, it is about noise. On another, it's about entitlement, empathy, competing needs, and the impossible fantasy that everyone else should organize their life around your crisis. And finally, in Research Roundup, we look at the claim that ADHD may really be 3 or more different things. It's an interesting idea and maybe a useful one, but it also raises the question of what the study actually showed, what it did not show, and how quickly a nuanced finding can get flattened into a headline that outruns the evidence. 3 segments, 1 thread. People love clean answers, but real life keeps refusing to stay that tidy. Let's do it. I would like to take a flashback to the 90s and tackle another That Would Never Work in Therapy. But unlike some of the ones we've done in the past, this does not directly deal with a therapist scene. So are you on board at least to see where this
Always, but we
goes?
don't know enough to dissent.
Figure it out. You keep going.
Okay, so Dan,
What would you do if I said no?
Yeah.
this comes from this little known show, Friends, and these 2 characters, there's Ross and there's Rachel.
Wait,
Anyway.
Ross
Whoa,
and
what?
Rach. Okay,
They
go
sound
ahead.
like they could be a hot couple.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit on and off. It's hard to read them sometimes. You know, Ross is known for the pivot, if nothing else. So
Okay. Well, please describe the situation. We'll happily
okay.
work on it.
Anyway, they get stuck in this repeating loop where the relationship conflict becomes a debate about the technical definition of on a break. Ross argues that the status change justifies his actions. Rachel experiences it as betrayal and abandonment. The argument turns into litigation. Who's right? What counts? What the label means? And it eclipses the real emotional injury and the repair work needed here. So I'm wondering, in the sitcom world, these couples get stuck litigating facts like that. And the relationship is kind of this trial, and there's this argument about trying to win the debate and who's right. But I'm wondering, how do you shift from fact fighting into impact and meaning and repair with a situation like this?
What he's asking us to do, Dan, is how do we help people learn how to have the conversation and make the rom-com or the sitcom a lot less funny and interesting?
Which is accurate. I mean, that particular situation, if I'm remembering correctly from 30 years ago, they had broken up. Ross slept with another woman. They got back together.
Yes, but I think at issue is the definition of on a break. Is on a breakup, or is that hey, we are distancing ourselves as 2 romantic people, but we have not entirely disentangled our romantic lives? And I think that's the issue that Rachel has. I mean, Rachel is under this false assumption that we are still committed. We are just not engaging in and pursuing this as a romantic relationship, but I still remain committed to you. Now, whether she meant that or not, or she was just pissy and jealous because Ross slept with someone before she found a new romantic partner, I don't know, right? That's not how the show played out.
Yes.
But, clearly Ross gets painted as the oblivious guy and, goes out and seeks solace or companionship with someone else. I actually don't remember how temporarily
I think
close these
it's
things
funny
were.
because in my recollection, again, 30 years old, they had formally broken up, and then they formally got back together. So it was a full breakup. But I don't actually know that that's true.
Michael's
I'm remembering
Googling this because
Michael's
none of us
definitely
remember
Googling
this
it.
exactly.
But I'm remembering it as a breakup, and I remember going, "Well, what's the?" I mean,
Yeah.
clearly they were broken up. Like, why is she holding this against him? But I could be wrong in my recollection.
Right. My recollection is it was a slightly more ambiguous, but the intention was it was a breakup and Rachel got upset.
Right.
Michael, are you going to settle a debate here?
Not yet.
I mean, I think you guys are right. I mean, that's
no. We've got slightly different takes.
We have different perspectives. What was the actual storyline here?
We need you to rabbit hole this for us.
I'll figure it out. You guys,
rabbit hole that. But here's the pivot, though, that we're talking about.
Pivot.
The pivot is moving away from this question of was it a break or wasn't it a break, and moving towards how did each one of them feel in that moment.
Right.
Rachel felt betrayed. Whether we can say that the betrayal was reasonable and rational or not, she felt betrayed. Ross felt falsely accused. Whether we can say that it's reasonable or unreasonable doesn't matter. He felt falsely accused. Now they have to work through these feelings that each one of them have that is based on their perception of the situation, no matter how the actual situation was. Those perceptions matter. So that's the pivot I would be making with Ross and Rachel were they in my office.
Yes. And I totally agree, because these regrettable incidences absolutely happen, and misperceptions and misrecollections. And we have people in our office all of the time swearing up and down 6 ways to their grandmother that this is the way it occurred, and that their intention somehow was known or clear to the other. And really what we're doing is not trying to relitigate or solve. What you're saying here is so important, because what we're doing is we're leaning into essentially that psychologist trope of how did that make you feel? Like, how did you feel about that? And really getting the relationship partner not to agree with the circumstances that led them to that feeling, but the experience of that feeling, period. And when you can do that, you can lean in and really let your partner know that you can see their hurt, you can witness it. And that goes, I think, a long way to repairing said rupture, right? And increases the likelihood that then you might get a response from the other. So had Ross leaned into that feeling of betrayal for Rachel, not necessarily throwing himself under the bus for causing that betrayal, but understanding how she arrived there emotionally, she then might be able to turn to him and really lean in and understand that feeling of false, what was the word you used? False accusation. You used a really great
he felt falsely accused.
Yeah, and she might be able to lean into that, and then we wouldn't get the "we were at a break" funny moment, right? Because it would have just passed as a thing that they have.
Yeah, they failed to have that good conversation, which again would have ruined the entire plot line of "but we were on a break" that we're still talking about 30 friggin' years later.
Right. Which I would also wonder if the writers intended, or sometimes they stumble their way through and go, "Oh, this seems kind of like a good idea. Let's stick with that." Right. This was kind of funny.
Right.
So, yeah. All right, Michael.
So I find it kind of funny that the facts matter here, because it is really not about who's right or wrong, right?
They don't.
But,
You're right.
But to set the story straight, really what happens is Rachel does say, maybe we should take a break. And then Ross calls her back because he's feeling upset, and he hears another man in the background and hangs up as she is saying, "I don't want to break." And so that's where like the confusion falls in there. And then, they argue back and forth whether or not they actually were, or what that break meant. Like nobody really defined what that meant, which I think is ultimately where you guys are getting at, is like, also, how do you define what a break is? Are you free to
I think
see other partners or not?
It's so hard in that moment. You're feeling emotional and vulnerable and raw to say, what does this mean? What kind of parameters are we putting into place here? But because it's often such an escalated moment, we're not getting clarity. We're just getting all of these hurt feelings and sort of this sort of shutdown. So we don't have good clarity about what this meant. And I found myself wondering, because I don't remember, how quickly Ross re-partnered with someone after that moment. My brain tells me it happened relatively quickly.
Yeah, that was my my 30-year-old recollection was that
Yeah.
he went out and hooked up that night or something. Like,
Yes, he overheard Mark, and I can't remember who Mark is, but he
Oh, I think
overhears
he's a
Mark in the
coworker that he was always
background,
jealous of.
and then he hangs up and essentially goes seeking solace, like Gail said, I think earlier in the conversation. So
Yeah.
it happens very quickly at that point. So
Yeah. And I think the complicating factor here is that it's Mark. He hears Mark's voice and he's always been feeling kind of uncertain about Rachel's relationship with Mark. Dan, you're making a face like I remember this detail from 30 years ago. Here's the deal.
I don't.
Well,
I don't remember this
so
detail at all.
I don't know if you know this, but Friends is playing like all of the time.
Yeah.
It's in rerun, like you would not believe.
Yeah.
And so a number of years ago, and I don't remember exactly how or why, but when our family was traveling, we didn't have our usual Netflix on or whatever. We had whatever was available on in the hotel television, and Friends happened to be on, and I think Michael and I were like, "Oh, this is kind of funny and it's familiar and it can't be that bad, right?" Which, by the way, does not age well. But beyond that, the kids watched it with us, and it has become a family tradition to watch Friends in the evening when we're traveling. If we've got nothing else we're doing and settling into the hotel, we'll watch a couple of episodes of Friends. Now, the downside of this is I think we've seen the same episodes repeatedly. Like, I don't know how we have managed to see like the very first and maybe even the very last episodes like multiple times. We don't travel that often. We just seem to like catch the cycle. I don't know how that's working, but our kids find it very, very amusing and are now teenagers quoting a TV show from 30 years ago.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Did not know that. But the one thing I want to kind of cap this off with is something we say a lot on this show. Almost every rom-com could be cut short to about like 5 or 6 minutes by a really good conversation. And oh, yeah, okay, good. With both people being open to hearing the other's perspective and really kind of hashing it out. And then like, oh, yeah, all right, now I understand.
And I will cap your cap with saying when we do this for folks in therapy, you watch the emotion just go.
Yeah.
And they feel so much better.
I mean, it was an awful situation in this Ross Rachel thing. And obviously really well contrived by the writers of the show, or at least really well superficially contrived by the writers of the show back in the day. But like if they sat down and went, really tried to understand the other's perspective, oh my God, I could totally see how you felt in that moment that I had connected with someone else and was already in a relationship and it was over. And well, I don't think people should be like sleeping with someone that night. Like, I can't hold against you that you did this. Oh gosh, I can really see how you wanted us to get together and how badly betrayed and hurt you felt by my sleeping with someone the very night that you wanted to get back together, and how painful and awful that would have been for you to discover that. And they can't undo the fact that he slept with someone when she thought they were together and he thought they were separated, but they can have a conversation about their feelings and potentially get to a place where it's not where they can come to some understanding about that together. It wouldn't have been funny.
Agreed. Nor would it have been funny if, and I'm going to call out a segment that is either yet to come or has already come. I don't know how these are going to get stitched together, but if you jump in an agreement too quickly, perhaps you're missing some information. Right. If Rachel hadn't agreed to something that she wasn't actually on board with, it would have been a lot less funny.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping me through another that would never work in therapy. Hopefully that gives people some idea of what might be in store if they actually found themselves in a similar situation.
It might also tell people how unfun it is to watch some of these things with a therapist next to you, because you'd be like, listen to how to do it.
Just talk to each other. Just have a conversation, for fuck's sake. Yeah. Gail, have you noticed this? We get, it seems like I get a lot of couples who say, we're not in crisis, but something feels off with us.
Right? I mean, we don't have to be like throwing plates and, absolutely ready to sign the divorce papers. Honestly, it's a really good idea to come in before these kinds of problems accumulate, just to learn to communicate and connect a little better.
Yeah, I think couples are sometimes afraid of saying we're entering couples therapy or we're beginning couples therapy because somehow couples therapy or doing couples therapy means our relationship is completely in the shit and is about to fall apart. And we work a lot with folks who are more in the things aren't where they need to be or we'd like them to be. We've gotten a bit static in our relationship and don't have the connection we had before. It's usually just because life is interfering and they've maybe deprioritized their relationship or just aren't communicating well anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And frankly, that's the best time to intervene is when things have gotten just a little bit sideways and not completely upside down. Investing early is really the best type of preventative care for probably the most important relationship in your life, or one of
Yeah.
them.
And we're happy to chat with folks. And sometimes people want to know, like, we're not sure if we need help. And, sometimes it's no, you know what, you are fine. And sometimes it's, yeah, here's what we could tweak a little bit, but this isn't like years of therapy. This is a few visits or a smaller number of visits to kind of tighten things up. There's all sorts of information about how to connect with us at our website, veritaspp.com, and there's a link in the show notes, but it's veritaspp.com.
Welcome back to another Am I the Asshole debate where I've gone on the internet and I've found a topic to throw to Dan and Gail and see what they're going to do with it. I've gone through and I've de-identified the post a bit to make it a little bit more discreet. And often there are some that I kind of hold on to for a while. And this is one of those. And I don't really know why, other than it's just a little strange. So,
Okay.
For our listeners, you need to understand Michael is two things beyond curious. One, he is a collector. And two, he's a little bit of a pack rat around those collections. He can be encouraged to purge. So it doesn't really surprise me that he's a collector of stories and quandaries for us, and then pulls them out for us to enjoy at some later date. Michael, how long have you been holding on to this one?
I believe 2 years.
I can't wait. All right.
So if it's a bust, then clearly I should have disregarded it. But this is the topic today. Am I the asshole for not delaying our rebuild for our pregnant neighbors?
Wait, what?
Excuse me?
I mean, of course not, but I mean, there has
Not.
to be more to it than that because
It's in like the double negative. Like I don't understand. To sort this out, please.
Yeah. So this is the full post. I've summarized it, but it is still a little bit longer than some of the others, just to give you some of the details and a kind of taste of it. But this is what we got. We have finally reached the end of a grueling 1.5 year planning process for our row house rebuild, and are incredibly excited to start the 3 to 4 month project at the end of this month. Although we have always been pleasant with our neighbors, we aren't close. But we did send them a text this weekend to give them a heads up about the coming construction, which unfortunately prompted a very difficult visit from the man next door. He expressed major disappointment because his girlfriend is due with their first baby next week. While we knew of the pregnancy in December, we thought she was due in February, and a previous casual mention of an April start date had shifted due to our contractor agreements and the temporary rental we had already lined up. We explained how sorry we were that the timing overlapped with their newborn, but we had to be firm that delaying the project by several months simply isn't a reality for us. The follow-up meeting we had the next day was incredibly draining, as the girlfriend cried the entire time and expressed how overwhelmed she feels by the stress and the hormones of the situation. They were blindsided by the 1 month notice via text and questioned if we had even tried to put ourselves in their shoes, especially since they have nowhere else to go and will desperately need to sleep during the day while the baby is young. They repeatedly asked if we could just say no to the project entirely, or if we could at least wait until the summer so they could go outside to escape the noise. We can only offer a build schedule and perhaps some minor coordination. They are now pushing for a daily quiet block from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. for the baby to nap, but I don't think it's realistic to make that kind of request of a professional construction crew. Am I the asshole?
Clearly, these neighbors have not been parents before. Babies sleep through just about anything.
Mm.
It's not the baby.
I what type
Yes,
of
Dan.
dwelling is this? Is this a
A
condo,
row house.
a row house?
I'm thinking like those homes in Brooklyn where
Yeah,
it's a home,
yeah.
but it's not standalone.
You
They're not
know,
townhomes, but
I mean,
they share adjacent walls.
when you purchase a home, there's actually a legal principle here, by the way, that I know of.
Oh,
It is called coming to the nuisance. And
coming to the
to the nuisance.
nuisance.
And by the way, I may be wrong because I read about this like 30 years ago.
Okay.
But
Well, you are a psychologist and not a lawyer.
right, I'm not a psychologist. And if we have some lawyers and they say I'm full of shit, please tell me I'm full of shit. I'm happy to hear that from
A
lawyers,
qualified professional.
qualified professionals to tell me I'm full of shit. I'm happy to hear that. But in this concept of coming to the nuisance, if you choose to, let's say, you choose to live near an airport and the flight path is well established and the plane goes overhead, you then can't complain about the plane going
Mm,
overhead. If you choose to live by a house right next to a neighborhood park, you can't say, well, the kids are being too loud. I'm gonna, that you have gone to that nuisance. And in this case, if you buy a row house or a condo or you buy a house in a city versus the country, you know that you are expected to be aware that there is a possibility of noise in living near other human beings. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I could be completely wrong here, but I think this sort of applies in this situation. That I mean, there's a reasonable expectation that from time to time people will repair their homes, work on their homes, and that would happen during the daytime.
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree. I mean, through the walls, we can hear. I've lived in apartments, not row homes, right? But you would hear televisions play. You can hear your neighbor's door close. Like there are those intrusions.
mhm,
I don't get to. When I was a mother with young babies at home, I would dread when UPS would come because they used to ring the doorbell. Which with a napping baby, I'd be like, oh, I really, And so then I did take to putting a sign on the door. It's okay, don't ring the doorbell, just leave the package.
right,
But to some extent, you just expect it because that's what happens during the day. We have some noise expectations and noise laws around not earlier than and not later than, which this construction crew isn't going to violate
right,
anyway.
right.
I really think that this ask on the behalf of the parents to be the neighbors is not it's
No,
not reasonable. I
it's not.
understand the fear, the anxiety, the
Mhm,
unknown they're about to face, and then you add into that the hormones of pregnancy, the difficulty that she may be experiencing and not sleeping well because late in your term of pregnancy you don't, and so some of this rational reasonability goes away, and I will add the first month or two is really difficult as you're trying to help baby develop a circadian rhythm and get all of that stuff under control. And clearly it's the first baby because did you sleep when the baby slept in the middle of the day with anything other than your first baby? I'm sorry, that was never a
Yeah, and
reality.
well,
I
the
I
other
went to
yeah,
bed.
the other thing here is that again, as parents are well aware, um, newborns predicting their sleep patterns and choosing their sleep patterns for them. I mean, at that age, sleep person chiming in here, and while I don't work with kids, at that age we would more likely expect to see a two nap kind of a situation with a morning nap and an afternoon nap.
I think
Um,
even more.
for
They
newborn,
might,
yeah,
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 they might.
oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
a
but
newborn
usually
three
usually
times a
by
day.
yeah, usually by a few months in, at you said they settle down to two naps a day,
Hmm.
and then eventually one. So the 12 to 3 time frame might not do anything to change anything for this. And it is unfortunate. I mean, this is one of those situations that we run into where it sucks. And I'm gonna say, like
Yeah.
for this young couple, like it sucks and it's unfortunate. And if there was an easy workaround, great. There's no malicious intent here on really on anyone's part. The new parents are panicking. The folks who are having the construction work done. I mean, I've had construction work done. Now I live in suburbia, but I've never considered telling my neighbors necessarily if I'm having. I did once actually. We're having a lot of work done, and it was gonna be disruptive to the cul-de-sac. There'd be cars coming
Hmm.
in or yeah, I'm having some work done, but it's not. I've never had a neighbor come to me and tell me they're doing work, including sometimes when it's been loud work out, And I had a neighbor who did a full remodel of something, and there were people out in the front yard sawing and hammering and putting stuff together. And I mean,
That
bummer, the work.
happened to me this week. I'm on video
Yeah,
calls. I'm doing this, and I've
yeah,
got a saw running in the driveway right because
yeah,
my house, the short end of the
yeah.
yard, is here, and their kid plays hockey. Do you know how many times I hear "Ka-thunk, ka-thunk," because the kid is
Right.
throwing a hockey puck into whatever in the wall of the garage that's on this side of the house? But
Yeah.
it's part
And
of
that is,
living near other people is
yeah,
are those noises, and they suck absolutely.
right.
You roll with it, you accommodate it.
Yeah. You are well
Like
within your right to go to another part of your house and say to your husband, Michael, oh my God, that is so annoying that they're doing that. Or to be like, oh, I really wish that they weren't doing this remodel when I was seeing patients. And you're not going to storm over your next door neighbors and demand that the kids stop shooting the puck against the wall, or 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 stop their construction during the day because you work from home. It's just not, it would not be reasonable to do so.
right. Now,
But it
clearly, I'm
does
not a
suck.
hockey mom because I didn't know what it was until I asked, but I just asked.
Yeah, I will tell you though, the just one of those, like, in case you're curious, if your son throws a lacrosse ball against the wall in the garage for a couple of years and damages a part of the drywall in the garage, he can create a hole that mice can get in later on, years down the road.
The more you know.
Purely hypothetically. Purely hypothetically. Anyway, no, this is a sad situation, and
It
everyone's
is.
getting hot under the collar. And this really is an opportunity to be like, gosh, I'm really sorry. I wish we could schedule it a different time, but we just can't. And for them to be like, okay, let's see how it rolls. I mean, it might
Yeah.
suck, it might not, but we this is where we're living, and that's going to
In
happen.
in my massaged facts idealized version of this story, the neighbors come over and go, "Oh man, this is really unfortunate and we're really excited for your construction." And the construction family says, I really am sorry, this is overlapping in this way. And then when it's all done, we're going to have you over and we're going to have dinner, and then you guys can go to a show. We'll keep the baby so you have a parent night out, and like, that they get along, and,
Hmm.
and they just kind of support each other. That'd be a lovely little kumbaya moment, but
Right, right.
we're not set up for that now.
No.
And I think really, Dan, we keep coming back to this and we keep hitting it, and it maybe we need to rename the show, but assume positive intent and
Ooh,
right,
what
right,
a
and
great
have the
name.
conversation.
Yeah,
I think, both of these apply here because, we are really, I think, in this place of assuming malintent and feeling excluded, and as though we don't have as though we don't have an option. And
right.
I just, yeah,
It's an unfortunate situation. It
it
really
is.
is. And I'm sure that OP, would they have a clear opportunity to do so, be like, yeah, well, we can do it another time. But maybe, well, maybe not though. I mean, I don't know that I would have changed my remodel after my kitchen got flooded,
But
because my
that's
neighbor.
different.
Yeah, yeah.
You had
But
damage, and so you were
that's
living with the
true.
damage. If that sounds like they took a year and a half to make some decisions, but then you end up on a construction schedule that's not yours because they
Oh,
have stacked projects,
oh
and
yeah.
interwoven those. So the crew is here and then they go there. And, that is just kind of precision project management.
Hmm.
This couple, that train left the station.
Right.
And it's unfortunate it took this long to figure this out. And, but at this point, we're at buy some earplugs.
Yeah, and I don't think that OP is an asshole, and I
Mm-mm.
don't think that I'm not going to call the expecting couple assholes either. I, I think that their anxiety has gotten the best of them,
I think so.
and they're struggling with seeing from others' perspectives.
Yes.
Um, so I don't think there's the sort of intent necessary to call them assholes. Um, they could use some, like, breath, take a breath and step back and look at the situation and think about it from all angles. But I'm not ready to call them assholes. What do you think, Gail?
I don't think anybody is asshole here either. I really think that this new couple expecting the baby just really doesn't know what they're in for and has their anxiety quite high.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm going to call no assholes here.
yeah. Michael, what does the internet say? I bet the internet's calling someone an asshole.
Um, Yeah, the internet definitely enjoyed this one. So I think probably the reoccurring theme was that the parents to be are at best completely naive and ignorant, and at
Mm.
worst completely entitled. And they weighed in on all of those things. Like, how do you get to dictate what somebody does with that space? And you were right, by the way. I looked up, again, not a lawyer, but from what I could find, the coming to the nuisance was exactly as you described, right? That
Oh, look at that.
so
30-year-old memory of a legal concept.
yeah, so well done.
Thank you.
But and then there are lots of other people who weighed in on, is there ever a good time for 3 months of construction? Like,
That's what
oh
I'm
great,
wondering. Is now you
like,
have a
Is there,
1-year-old and
or
like,
is there ever a good time for a newborn? I mean,
right?
right?
both are
Both are
love my
true.
children if you're listening. They're wonderful, but those newborn months are challenging.
Yeah. I think my favorite were the people who suggested, well, could you hold off on having your baby because they're very noisy.
They are noisy,
They are, man. We're
and
set
it
up to
doesn't get
complain
better.
about crying through the
Doesn't get
right.
better when
And
they're
that baby's not going to
teenagers.
respect the noise laws after 10 p.m.
No, that baby will absolutely not be respecting the post 10 p.m. noise laws.
Yeah, the overwhelming internet response was the OPs are not the assholes. And in fact, many people were like, you are way more considerate and caring than I would have been in the same situation. Like,
Yeah,
the very
I don't
fact that
know that
you're
I would have.
even considering any of these things
Yeah,
is like says the kind of neighbors they really are. So,
yeah, I
You
would
know
not
the
have thought. Go ahead.
no, please.
Okay, I would not have thought to have told my neighbors, as I mentioned here, in a single family, like with a little bit of gap between the houses. I don't know if I would have thought to have even told them if I lived in a townhouse or a row house. It just, something happens.
I don't know, right? Sometimes I think there's neighborhood culture at play.
Hmm.
I know when we did some construction on our house, we told our neighbor, but quite frankly, it's because their preschooler likes watching construction. And so it was more like, hey,
Right,
it's an
right,
opportunity than a
right,
nuisance.
right.
My neighbor who did construction and had the saws in the driveway didn't tell us. And I
No,
think that's
why
fine.
would they?
I do think that one maybe small exception that I'm going to take with this family is if you're going to tell your neighbor, I don't know that sending that via text is as kind as you could be. It's a fucking row house.
No, I'd still send a text.
I think
I,
that, if you I think a personal communication, it just like, hey, heads up, might have been nicer. I don't think it's required. And you're saying, hey,
probably would have, probably how, well, now maybe I might be
it makes
wrong.
me a better neighbor than you.
Well, I'm sure you are a better neighbor than me. But I know I would if I might send most I might send as a text. But I know I do remember we were very careful when we had roof, and I know other people, but sometimes roofers want to start before 7, and there
Mm.
is a rule here in this neighborhood you can't start those kinds of things until 7 a.m. And like there was a complaint made when a neighbor had some roofing work done at like 6 a.m. or 6:30 in the morning, and after that they told the people who are coming out or the rest of others of us who had work done said like, hey, we're don't start until 7. So that's not unreasonable. But again, I also we're recording this in Minnesota, and while you are supposed to be quiet before a certain time, sometimes you need to snow blow your driveway in order to leave. And if you leave for work early, you might need to do that at 6:30 in the morning. And I would hope that, fortunately, I don't have to do that because I work from home, but I would hope that all of our neighbors would go, oh, okay, that's going to happen from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you have to snow blow your driveway at 6 o'clock in the morning in order to get out.
And I'm not saying you have to tell them in person. I'm saying it would have been nicer. It would have been, I
Okay,
think,
I'll give you
a little nicer. Maybe I'm just too Minnesota nice these days,
yeah,
but
you
like
are.
I think the text message, and maybe
Okay.
it's totally appropriate because they don't know them well. But yeah, maybe just a little like knock,
Yeah.
by the way, hey, it's finally getting started. I think it would have been shared out of excitement.
Yeah.
Obviously would have landed with disappointment, but
Hmm. Hmm.
anyway, Michael, I interrupted you.
That's okay. I was just going to say one of the other kind of side conversations that took over a lot of the threads was how much people hate the advice to sleep when the baby sleeps. They're like, fuck that. Like, there's no way
Right.
you can do that. Babies sleep all the time and irregularly, and people are like, oh, yeah, you're supposed to go grocery shopping when the baby sleeps. How do you do that? Like, the baby's there. And then there are all these other stories about parenting things. I think my favorite of which was a mother who had a child whose early word was boobies. And she tried to take them and like had the child strapped to her, the baby Bjorn carrying thing as she was grocery shopping, and the baby had been sleeping, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the grocery store it starts yelling boobies over and over again. And they're just like, these people have no idea what parenting is. Like, it is messy. It is never what a book tells you it's going to be. Like, you just need to learn to relax, and you won't understand that until it happens to you. So,
Yeah.
Right, right. Amazing. I love that.
yeah. Well, thank you both for following me down the path of another Am I the Asshole debate. Tune in next week and see what we have store.
Well, and I just want to say you held on to this for like 2 years. So now I wonder how the construction turned out. Because
Yeah.
clearly they must be
Can
done
we
by
reach
now.
out?
And this kid is practically on its way to preschool.
Can we reach out to OP and find out if the construction turned out properly?
That's funny. I will. I'm going to totally do that.
I am
Oh my
100%
gosh.
certain that you will.
The
Absolutely.
kid's first word is hammer.
You should, and maybe we can post an update when you hear back from them. If you hear back from them, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Dan, I swear, every week someone sits down for their very first visit or maybe not even their first visit, and they tell me something like, I feel like I should have it all together by now.
Yeah. Or a lot of the folks I see, it's like I've been told by my partner to come in to get help, or other people have been encouraging me to, and certainly we see this a lot with people. Their lives are busy.
Well, absolutely. And a lot of times people are sitting down with us not because they're broken, but simply because they want to fine tune or just even create a little breathing room in their life.
Yeah, there's this idea that well, I'm not sick enough yet. I'm not problemed enough yet. I'm not like overwhelmed by everything. And we're finding is a lot of folks that come in, they're coming in, as you said, more because maybe life isn't terrible, but it isn't what they want it to be either.
Right.
And then,
Absolutely. And now, if this is in any way descriptive of you, you can come find us. We're at veritaspp.com. That's V as in Victor, ERIT as in Tom, PP as in
Psychology
psychologypartners.com.
Partners, yeah. A link in the show notes.
Absolutely.
I love saying that. I'm not sure why.
Thanks for joining us for a quick research roundup. I saw this article circulating the internet essentially claiming that ADHD, I mean, it went under a couple different titles, but essentially the buzz was that ADHD is more than one thing. And this felt like news to me, but maybe it's not news to you guys. I was kind of curious if you could weigh in on what this is all about and what we should actually take away from it.
You mean the article called Mapping ADHD Heterogeneity and Biotypes by Topological Deviations in Morphometric Similarity Networks? That big mouthful article? Holy crap, Michael.
That's
Yes,
quite the
that
article.
one,
We
but
are doctoral level psychologists?
the clickbait version was a lot simpler to say. So
Well, yeah, I was gonna.
Yes.
When are they going to start doing good research articles with clickbaity titles? Wouldn't that be better?
That would be so much better.
Like the Journal of Personality Assessment having something like, now I can't think of anything
Nothing clickbaity enough.
clickbaity enough, but something really clickbaity would be great for
Right.
an actual journal article. And then you click on it, it's like, 43 pages of data analysis and analyses of variance, and you're like, oh.
Right. No, and I think I'm going to just start by saying the title is a bit suggestive of when I reviewed this article, how complicated it felt. And so the clickbait headline that ADHD is separate conditions, 3 separate conditions, is clickbaity and oversimplified. That's what I took away from this. And yet, probably not entirely surprising based on our experience of people who have diagnosed ADHD, because ADHD doesn't present just as one thing.
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't. I mean, we know about ADHD. Well, we don't actually know this for sure. What we think, and we have thought clinically for years, is that ADHD isn't a thing. It is many things that look similar. And we thought the same thing about a number of mental health issues. Depression, certainly we're discovering that there isn't one thing, or I believe, and you'll contradict me if you think I'm wrong here, there isn't one etiology or one cause for depression. There's multiple causes for this disorder that looks the same in different people, but probably has a different underpinning. And with ADHD, there are different types and subtypes of ADHD. And to treat, I mean, for me, part of the takeaway is that we can't treat everyone with ADHD as if they're everyone with ADHD.
Absolutely. And there are some tips and tricks and tools and things that we recommend across the board. But quite frankly, a lot of those things are just things that are good for everybody, that
Right.
create some structure and organization. And people that currently carry this diagnosis, the way we've conceptualized it, that it works. But
Right.
what we don't know with this information is medication interventions.
Hmm.
Why, we do have this sort of rule of thirds. A third of people are like, oh my God, my life has changed. A third of people are like, yeah, Tuesday was better. And a third of people are like, what medicine, right? Like they just don't get impacted. And there are different kinds of different, medicines that people use for this. We don't know what this information means about prescribing medication to these people. And
Right.
hopefully, this is a step in the right direction, because I think often people go through a number of different kinds of medications to try to support them. And it can feel a little like playing darts blindfolded.
Right.
So
Right.
hopefully, we're moving forward with that, a greater degree of specificity. But this article did not bring us there. It just got us on the path.
Yeah, it confirms that this thing that we have believed is the case for a long time likely is the case. And I've said this for many years that there is so much we do not know and understand about the human brain and how it operates and how it functions. And it may seem like, oh, now we're saying this, but yet last year you said something different. And yeah, to some degree, that's what's happening, and we see this in medicine as well. Where the recommendations of 5 years ago are now completely different than the recommendations of today. And as we learn more, we're going to make different recommendations. We're doing what we can, and hopefully, we're going to learn a lot more over time about what the right way to treat this person with this type of ADHD is once we have better defined what that is.
And whenever I see the clickbaity title, I always go and find the actual study because I'm just like, okay, I want to read the source instead of the simplified version of it. And it is very rare that the thing that is being spread out on the internet is in equal alignment with the actual study. There's always some tiny piece of it that has been pulled out. And I kind of
Right.
wonder, like,
Well, it's kind of like watching therapy. Watching science is also very boring.
Not a lot of therapy TV is good, but there's one particular show that I like, and I realize that it's interesting, but it's interesting because they have distilled like 3 sessions of for each of 4 clients down to 1 half-hour episode, and
they've cherry picked the pieces. Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah, good therapy
That's
is I don't think you'd want to watch it.
No, and good
It
science.
would
Back to
be
that, Michael. I know you were saying, but like it's just boring. This is going to be like watching paint dry, and every once in a while you get something that's really revolutionary. But in general, no.
And I know they need money to do the research, and so I'm sure part of that is like to build interest or whatever.
I would say also to start spreading and getting people
Mm.
excited about it. I mean, part of the reason that you're going to see an article like this hit some major news stream is because we do want to disseminate this. We do want to maybe start people thinking, hey, there's some differences here, and maybe this is what's going on. So I don't think it's all bad. I just think, we can get into a place where we oversell the results of a study like this, which I don't want to belittle at all. What we have here is very interesting. It's not gonna turn treatment of ADHD on its head today.
Cool. Well, thank you both for digging into that and satisfying my curiosity. I appreciate it. So what's the connective tissue here? Simply too fast usually creates new problems. With Ross and Rachel, the argument gets stuck on a narrow question because narrow questions feel winnable, but relationships are rarely repaired by winning the technical point. You can be factually precise and still miss the emotional reality entirely. In the renovation conflict, the same thing happens. One side says, we have a baby. The other side says, we have a house and a schedule. Both are real. The trouble starts when either side treats their own reality as the only one that counts. And with the ADHD research roundup, the temptation is to grab the most dramatic version of the finding and run with it. But careful science usually deserves careful language. Interesting is not the same as settled. A possible framework is not the same thing as a final answer. If there's one thing to take away from today, it's this. The cleaner the claim, the more carefully you should look at what got trimmed away. I'm Michael. This is Veritas Views. Thanks for spending time with us.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gail McBride at Dr. G. McBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners. Credits: Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael McBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. McBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.